All you hear about Halloween Horror Nights is how it's an amazing event and people look forward to it all year long. I would go as far to say it has a cult-like following. And then you've got the people that don't think they'll like the event and they refuse to go, like Anna, and then they end up going and it becomes one of their favorite events they've ever been to. And you might even say that they joined that cult that we were just talking about. So what we're going to do in today's video is we're going to talk about why HHN might not be for you, but also why we think you should still give it a chance, and then give you some tips and tricks to help you make the most out of it if you find yourself in this situation.
We're just gonna be honest with you and give you some hard truths about HHN. If you go to Halloween Horror Nights, you are going to get scared. There's literally no way around it. The event isn't just the 10 haunted houses that are hidden off stage in the back lots. There are also scare zones that are scattered throughout the park, and you can't navigate Universal Studios without walking through one of these scare zones. As soon as you walk into the park, there's a scare zone directly in front of you in Production Central, and there's another one to your right down Hollywood Boulevard. So it doesn't matter which way you go, you have to walk through a scare zone. And if you've heard that you can avoid the scare zones by walking on the sidewalk, that is absolutely not true. Now, you might be less likely to be targeted by a scare actor because you are going to be off to the side, but the fact that you 100% won't get scared is a myth. On top of that, the scare zones are graphic. They frequently contain scenes of blood and guts and dismembered body parts, and they're also extremely loud, like have to scream at the person next to you.
What?
And speaking of loud noises, there are also chainsaws at the event most years. I empathize with the chainsaw haters. I hate them too. But in years past, they've even had an extra scare zone in Springfield that's just filled with team members running around with chainsaws.
And of course, the houses are there to scare you. That's kind of the point, right? There's scare actors around every corner who are just trying to get a reaction out of you. But they also play into some of your other senses, such as your sense of smell. They will artificially pump smells into some of the houses or some areas of the houses. Like a couple of years ago in the Ghostbusters house, they pumped in the smell of roasted marshmallow, which is a great smell. Everybody loves the smell of roasted marshmallow. If you don't, I don't really trust you, but not all smells are good. Sometimes they pump in some not so pleasant smells, such as maybe like burning flesh or rotting flesh. And sometimes they even do the doo-doo. Whatever sets the mood for the house, they will pump it in there. So if you're somebody who is sensitive to smells and that's something that bothers you, that's something you might want to keep in mind.
If you were already on the fence about going to Halloween Horror Nights, you're probably less interested now than when you clicked on this video a few minutes ago, but don't worry, it's not all bad. HHN actually has the reputation of being less scary than a lot of other haunts, and one of the big reasons is because the scare actors don't touch you. In fact, they're absolutely not allowed to touch you at all. This means that the worst case scenario, all that's gonna happen is somebody jumps out at you and you scream. That's literally it. And unlike some other haunts, the scare actors don't torment you either. So if you're walking through a scare zone and somebody jumps out and scares you, they're just gonna go on with their night. They're not gonna like chase you down the road until you have a panic attack. We've been to some other haunts where the actors seem to feed off of fear, and that's just not the case at HHN. Another great thing about Halloween Horror Nights versus other haunted houses is that the scare actors don't really come up from behind and scare you. If you're walking through a scare zone, the majority of the time they're gonna either be walking directly at you, or sometimes they will come from the side and do like a sneak attack. But if you're paying attention, most of the time you can see it coming and mentally prepare yourself for the scare. And another great thing about the scare zones is that they're well defined. And what we mean by that is that you can tell when you enter a scare zone, and you can also tell when you exit a scare zone. And the scare actors in a specific zone almost have like a boundary that they don't really go outside of. So
it's not like they don't have like dog collars on or they're getting like shocked if they get out at a certain point. But yeah, like I know what you're saying.
So once you exit a scare zone, you don't really have to worry about somebody coming up and scare you because it only happens inside of those specific areas.
The houses at HHN also seem to be a little more tolerable because they are so short. So when we go to other haunted events, it's not uncommon for us to spend 20 to maybe 40 minutes in a single house, but that's definitely not the case at HHN. You're typically going to spend less than 5 minutes in each house. Whether you think that's a good or bad thing, that is a totally different discussion. But if you get into one and you're just not comfortable, it just means that you're not going to be in there for long, so you can sort of take those risks. We've been on hay rides at local haunts that are well over an hour, so it's definitely not as intense as some of the other things. Yes, while you're in there, there are going to be intense scenes and things that may not be exactly what you are wanting to see, but the good news is that it will be over soon because none of the houses last that long.
We've heard countless stories of people who were anti-haunted houses that went to HHN and absolutely fell in love with the event. Like Tyler mentioned earlier, I am one of these people myself. I hate traditional haunted houses, and it took Tyler several years to convince me to go to Halloween Horror Nights for the first time, but now it's something that I look forward to and get excited about every single year. The event is so well ran that I'm able to let loose and just embrace the entire experience. I have even gotten to the point where I will voluntarily be the first person to walk into the house.
That's only at HHN. She definitely won't do that anywhere else.
That's still a huge accomplishment for me, but if you are someone who is apprehensive about attending the event for the first time, we have some advice to help you get through the night and even make the most out of it. Our first piece of advice is to do some prep work before you go or even agree to go to HHN. There are all kinds of videos that you can find online from previous events where you can see what the scare zones are going to be like, you can see house walkthroughs, you can even watch some previous shows all from the comfort of your couch. And then once you watch those, you can decide if this is something that you actually want to do or not. And something else that we think you should do before going to Halloween Horror Nights is to watch the TV shows and movies that some of the houses are based off of. We have personally found that we enjoy the houses a lot more because we're able to pick up on the small details and understand the references that are made. And as someone who doesn't exactly love being scared, it allows me to take the focus off of the people that are jumping out at me and appreciate all of the artistic work and detail that goes into every set in every scene. We also think that you should have a game plan ready before you get there. Now, we're not saying that you need like a minute-by-minute itinerary that you strictly stick to, but having an idea of what houses you would like to go through and where those houses are located is a really good idea. You should also be aware of some places that you can escape the horror if you get too overwhelmed. The best place to do that, at least in our opinion, is in Diagon Alley. This part of the Wizarding World is completely separated from the rest of the park, and you won't find a hint of Halloween or horror back there. Another great safe place is the Kids Zone, and if all else fails, you can always just leave Universal Studios and hang out in City Walk for a while. Once you actually get to the event, we suggest starting slow. There's no reason that you have to go through all of the haunted houses or any of the haunted houses for that matter, but if you are wanting to experience one of the attractions, we suggest starting with something that's a little bit less intimidating. Last year, for example, one of the houses was Beetlejuice. This would be a fantastic house to get your feet wet with because it's based on a fun, somewhat kid-friendly movie.
Nice model.
Now, of course, there are still going to be some scare actors that are going to jump out and try to scare you, but it's not going to be nearly as bad as, say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre that was also at last year's event. And then if you enjoy that house, you can slowly work your way up to some of the more intimidating ones. If you're someone that gets overwhelmed with loud noises or has sensitive ears, it can also be a good idea to bring earplugs or some type of noise canceling headphones. This can be a great way to drown out some of the sounds when you're walking through the scare zones or even in the houses themselves. I have really sensitive ears myself, and some of the houses are so loud it physically hurts to walk through them. Depths of Fear from 2019 was the absolute worst. There was a siren in that house that was deafeningly loud. I loved the house, but when I walked through it, I had to physically plug my ears just so I could tolerate it. That house is actually the reason that I started carrying earplugs with me to the parks, and they have come in handy several times since then.
We hope this video has given you the confidence to give Halloween Horror Nights a chance, and we really think that you should because we would love to see you in the fog. Leave us a comment in the comment section and let us know what's your favorite smell that you've ever smelled in a house at Halloween Horror Nights.
If you enjoyed this video, give us a thumbs up. You can hit that subscribe button and turn on that bell notification so you get an alert every time we post a new video.
Thanks for watching. Doo-doo.